Hey everybody. Yes, this is a Lace on Race hot take, and it is not about elections. Or it kind of is. But I'm mad. I'm really mad. This belongs in the conscious consumerism part of what we're going to be doing in November, preparing for the holiday season. But I think it's important enough to talk about now. Kroger and Albertsons and all their stores under different names are going to be are going to be joining forces. It's not hostile. This is considered a good thing, but let me tell you, it's not. We are talking about consolidation in a part of the marketplace that is already looking at record high inflation and record high profits. There is absolutely no benefit to the consumer for these two behemoths to be merging. In San Diego, this is particularly poignant. Kroger operates under two banners in San Diego County. Food for Less, their value chain, and Ralph's, their more premium chain. Vons and Albertsons, under the heading of Albertsons Incorporated, Albertsons is their more value-driven store, and Vons is their more premium store. Vons and Albertsons merged about 10 years ago, and I will keep it G-rated, but I gotta tell you, it was a cluster. There were about 1/3 of the stores that either Albertsons or Vons, when they were separate, owned at the time. And they were told that for antitrust issues, they'd have to get rid of about 1/3 of them. And they did. A very unfortunate chain came in from Washington State, lasted less than a year. And then what you wound up having big boxes with tens of thousands of square feet lying dormant. Now we can talk a lot about, I'm sorry about the light, we can talk a lot about Albertsons and its broken promises to Black and brown communities. We can talk a little bit about Ralph's, that they do a little bit better, but have not always met with the promise. And so the big question for me is always, how is this going to affect brown and black people? Well, we saw what happened 10 years ago. After that unfortunate Washington State chain left, all of those empty big boxes, or almost all of them, became Smart and Finals. Now, a cynic would say that this is union busting. All four of the stores I mentioned under the two big umbrellas, Ralph's, Albertsons, and Vons, operate under one union contract. Food for Less, because it's what's called a limited service store, you're expected to bag your own groceries, operates under another contract, all with a local food and commercial workers union. There have been two strike actions. One was narrowly averted about 6 or 9 months ago. The other one was a big deal. That was around 2005, 2006, and it went on literally for months. I was on the picket line every day as a member of SEIU. Here's the thing, though. Nothing substantially changed. And the union did give some concessions, including a two-tier wage and, more crucially, retirement system and also medical system. But it was said that it was necessary in order to keep them in business at all. And then the merger came about 10 years ago, and we saw what happened there. In most of the stores that people think of nowadays when they think of modern grocery stores as opposed to legacy grocery stores, they are all non-union. Smart and Final, non-union. Trader Joe's, non-union. Aldi, non-union. It is very hard to get into a union shop. And what I fear is this is going to be a replay on a grander scale than when Albertsons, formerly Lucky's, and Vaughn's pavilions merged back in the day. It was not of benefit to the workers, and it was not of benefit to customers. Consolidation does nothing to drive prices down. There might be some efficiencies in terms of distribution, but there were supposed to be efficiencies in distributions when Albertsons and Vaughn's merged, lo, these many years ago. You did not see it. You did not see it in how prices shook out over time. Albertsons was always a couple of pennies lower than Vaughn's even before the merger. Both of them were a couple of pennies lower than Ralph's, and Food for Less undercut them all with its limited service model. Now, what does all of this have to do with conscious consumerism? It has to do with how we get our groceries, what we just sort of roll over and put up with. Oh, by the way, let's also not forget the 3 other non-union stores, one of which everyone loves to hate, 2 others, one most of us wish they could afford, and the other one that everyone feels is the knight in shining armor in terms of big box retail. I'm talking about Walmart, I'm talking about Whole Foods, and I'm talking about Walmart. Walmart is the biggest grocery retailer in the United States, bar none. The merger between these 2 brands is going to get them closer to Walmart's reach, but also probably closer to Walmart's problematic. There is something to be said about scale, kind of like I was talking about earlier, talking about efficiencies. But at the same time, we need to remember this, that scale, particularly when we're talking about a publicly traded company, is not going to put a whole lot of money into your pocket. There is a book called The Walmart Effect, and my goodness, we're going to have to run this again for November in Conscious Consumerism because I'm giving away a lot of my cards. But there is a book called The Walmart Effect. It came out maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and what was important to me was that the author of the book was not rabidly anti-Walmart. He was actually quite agnostic about it. What he did say was that Walmart moves markets. Not just in groceries, but also in personal care, in cosmetics, in bedding, in electronics. When you are the 800-pound gorilla, you can more or less set your own terms. And that's what Walmart has done. To a smaller extent, these large grocery retailers have done the same thing. Part of conscious consumerism is knowing where your money goes. And when we're looking at publicly trading companies, and when we're looking at the myths that sometimes grocery retailers tell us, we operate on such a thin margin. Well, on some items you do, but on some items, it's a pretty darn good margin. And when you have national sailors, national brands such as Unilever, Procter & Gamble, the 4 companies that have basically cornered the market in drugstore sales, even though it looks like you've got more choice. You know, L'Oreal owns, Procter & Gamble owns. There's a lot of fake choice when it comes to most areas of retail. But in any case, when we're looking at that, we have to think about the fact that even though sometimes consumers benefit from being able to move markets like Walmart can, we usually don't get a lot. Here's a case in point. There is a reason why you no longer get your deodorant in a box. A good 20 years ago, maybe even before then, Walmart decided that it was tired of paying for 2 things, the space to transport and the cost to transport deodorants in boxes. So they prevailed upon the big players, Procter & Gamble and Unilever, and said, we don't want to pay for boxes anymore. Find a way to ship us deodorant and antiperspirant without the boxes and without breakage. Here's what we're willing to pay you to do that. Moving markets, setting the terms. And they did. That is, and it was sold as consumer friendly because it's less packaging, less waste, and that's true. Walmart saved a little under 1.5 cents per unit. That seems small, but when you think about tens of millions of deodorants and antiperspirants, it starts looking a lot different. Well, if they were going to do it for Walmart, the biggest retailer, they were going to have to do it for Target. They were going to have to do it for the grocery stores. And lo and behold, that is why you get your secret solid like this. That is unquestionably a good thing. Less waste for the planet, it's environmentally friendly, and I think I read in the book that the end user customer got about a half a cent. I wonder how they worked that out. A half a cent off of their deodorant. So if the deodorant was going to be $2.97, it was now probably going to be $2.96. But I don't know about you, but I only buy deodorant not even once a month, not even twice a month. So even 20 years ago, when a penny was worth more than it is now, I maybe saved 4 to 6 cents over the course of a year. Walmart saved millions. And when you take that and you look at pretty much every other item that they sell, the fact that they can indeed set the terms for manufacturers and wholesalers. Now I want us all to pivot back to Albertsons, Vons, and the Kroger Corporation. Now, technically speaking, in San Diego, we're sort of lucky. We have that pseudo choice of 2 chains operating 2 stores apiece. But in the rest of America, you usually get 1. When I was in North Carolina, there was 1. I think it was Teeter something. I visited maybe a year ago. Harris Teeter, that's Kroger. And if you wanted something from the Vons or Albertsons chain, I think you had to kind of go a ways. And it's really hard to tell who owns what because most of the time they keep their local names. So it is not going to look as if Albertsons is going to slap Albertsons corporations onto every Albertsons, Vons, Food for Less, and Ralph's, not to mention the various other names that they're all using across the country. It is going to look like you have choice. And if they can probably get away with it, they're going to keep things as they are. Because people like to think that they are having more control over their spending than they actually have. Oh, I don't like Food for Less. I'll go to Ralph's. Well, don't like the produce at Albertsons, I'll go to Vons. Or Vons is entirely too expensive, I am going to save at Albertsons. And that could very well be true. But we need to tell ourselves the truth about that level of choice and whether or not we are actually making, particularly when at least some of our choices and decisions are driven. And if I'm talking to you and you're listening this far, I'll bet you that a lot of your choices in terms of your end user consumer game are driven by morals and ethics. And we'll talk about it in conscious consumerism. It really is hard to tease out who owns what. It really, both from the manufacturers, if you decide that you want to go meatless and you don't want to, and Morningstar Farms looks like a little local brand, no, it's Kellogg's. So in order to live our lives out the way we say we want to live them, we have to do deep dives, deep annoying dives, and especially when all you want to do is a 20-minute Target run. We're going to talk about this, but right now my blood is boiling. That and also we will also talk about, right now we've got a party in office and ostensibly in power that's on the side of the angels, and it was their federal agency that is allowing this merger to go through, to the detriment of consumers and definitely to the detriment of workers, because the minute you start talking efficiencies, you start talking layoffs. We'll talk about this more, but I don't think that this should be forgotten or, by the next news cycle it's gone. This is an issue for Black and brown people because historically Black and brown people have been shut out of supermarkets altogether. And this consolidation is going to make I refuse to use the word food desert, but refuse to make that representation any better. Let's stay tuned for more. We'll be talking about conscious consumerism as we head into November. I'm going to get back to the elections issues. If you have any comments at all, put them down below. I'll be running this again probably during the elections issue, maybe with a commentary on top. But I want you to be as mad as I am. I want you to be mad about not just this impending, actually now it's sort of a done deal merger, but also about how we live out our consumer lives and how little choice we have, but also how much choice we have. We have less choice than we think when it comes to the things they want you to think you have artificial choice about, but we do have more choice than we admit on other sides of the consumer coin. Thanks for listening. We'll talk more. Back to the elections issue.